For obvious reasons, I'm keeping my identity anonymous, but I cannot stand and not let people know the truth. I'm pretty sure most or all of you guys, girls, know Toy Story. For the few people that don't know Toy Story was a Pixar movie made in 1995 about a group of toys, the main character being Woody, being the favorite toy, and then the birthday coming for him to be replaced. A big rivalry goes up against him and Buzz until they get mixed up in another house. Sid, a kid that is obsessed with tearing apart toys, destroying toys, and making creepy versions of said toys. What if I told you that the ending of that Toy Story movie was originally supposed to have more of a darker and sinister theme to it? I was one of the people that worked with Toy Story, that worked on the animation. Plus, I was also the one that worked for the idea of what the ending would be. I had one colleague that came to the meeting that we all showed up to. He was supposed to show his animation of the show, the movie, the ending. But a quick call caused the meeting to end, and we weren't able to see it. That wasn't until the next day. I would show up to work to find out that we're doing a screening of Toy Story to a group of kids that won a show. I was the one that's supposed to get ready. I walked in the room where the shows are set down at. When I came across Toy Story, it was in a disc form, which was kind of odd, but I went ahead with it. As I sat it down and walked to the computer to get it ready, I turned back to the room and walked back in to find out that the DVD was replaced with a VHS tape. I was confused, but I walked up to it. It said Toy Story. I thought to myself, maybe it was just an error. Maybe someone walked in and replaced it. Not thinking too much of it, I grabbed the VHS tape. I plugged the VHS player into the big TV that kids were going to watch it on. And I put the VHS tape in. These kids were at around elementary, low 4th grade. We turned out the lights and I walked out the room. I took a nap. I wake up a little later, find out about 40 minutes have passed. Ten minutes later, when I'm playing on my phone, I hear the horrific screams of all the kids in that room. Me and another colleague ran up into the room, opening the door as Sid's horrific screams filled the speakers. I quickly ran towards the box to turn it off, but they didn't stop the crying. All those kids were in tears, freaking out, begging for their parents. We were able to get them back to their parents. They would never say what they seen on there, just said they did something to Sid. Which I was confused. I knew the ending where they would have toys come to life. I was thinking, oh, maybe they just thought that, like, it'd be disturbing, but that scream wasn't supposed to be in that scene. So I walk back. My other colleague, Dave, walks in with the VHS tape and says, we need to look at this because I am so confused. I said, I agree. The boss walks in. For legal reasons, I'll call him Tim. He walks in and says, well, I heard you guys are looking over the VHS tape. I looked at him and said, yeah, and I apologize for the inconvenience, but we just want to know what they're talking about. Just don't have me waste your time. I'm coming in here to look at myself. I have to. It's my job. I get it. Plug in the VHS tape into the other TV. We play the movie. We skip all the way to the ending scene. The scenes happens normally. Sid walks out, about to light Buzz up with a firework. All of a sudden the toys come to life, as usual. But something else happened. The toys would then crawl all over Sid, which was kind of confusing, as he thrashed around in terror and telling him to get off. He was slowly pulled by more toys. He was pulled into the basement. Where they would slowly but surely rip him limb from limb. I won't go into too much detail, but it was gruesome, so gruesome that Dave threw up all over the desk. We had to rush him out. As we walked back in, the same screams. And then the movie played on as they were trying to get back to Andy. My boss didn't even waste any time. Tim walked up to the DVD player, the VHS player, inject the VHS tape, picked it up, looked at me and said, in pure rage, get everyone in a meeting room now. I shook my head. I nodded my head. I said, yeah, all right. We all there, even Dave. I was still a little woozy, including the weird guy. I'll call him Chuck. Chuck sat there with a grin. Boss walks up, slams it on the table and says, can anyone explain why this VHS tape has what it's on? That wasn't the original. Chuck laughs and says, it wasn't. It was what I made. Tim said, what do you mean? You're not supposed to. Chuck cut him off. I'm the designer. You guys didn't let me have my way to show, so I had to force it. I looked over at Chuck and I said, Chuck, they're just kids. Kids that are going to watch this. Chuck said, well, they're obviously going to see horror. Why not scare the kids? Teach them not to replace or destroy toys. Tim looked at him in pure anger. You're making this movie for all the wrong reasons. This ain't supposed to be some lesson that's supposed to be taught. You get your stuff, and you get out of my building now. Tim yelled. Chuck just stood up and said, "All right. But don't tell me I warned you." He walked out. Later, we find out some of those kids had to get psychiatric help, therapy. And we also found out that we are all fired, not by Tim, but by the higher-ups. Even though Chuck was the cause of it, we were all a team. Till this day, I can't look at Toy Story the same. Sure, I like watching it. Toy Story will always be one of my favorite movies. But every time I see that ending, the original, I always remember the ending. That was on that VHS tape. My boss threw it away. Now I'm not asking anyone, and I repeat, no one looking for it. You may think you can stand it, but what was on the ending of that VHS tape is far too disturbing